You're listening to WICR, Iona College Radio.
Welcome back for our second segment of The Rock is On, folks. I am your host, The Rock, and we're still going to stick to the topic of the NBA playoffs. Now, on my last segment, I talked about the first round and how is it going to be a quick, short first round? Maybe. Some matchups, yes. Some matchups, no. But for the next topic of the NBA playoffs, we're going to move on to the best team in the playoffs, and that's the 73-9 historical Golden State Warriors. Now, look, we know that the Warriors are the defending champions. They won 67-15 last year, 73-9 this year. You know, they surpassed this 1995-1996 Chicago Bulls record for most wins in a season, along with most road wins in a year as well. But there's one question that remains in these playoffs, and that is there a team, any team, that can beat this potent Warriors team led by the Splash Brothers, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, along with, the physicality and defensive performance of Draymond Green? Is there any team? And if you look at the West, I'd say you give maybe two teams a chance. And those teams are the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we'll start off with the Spurs. Now, we saw back in March on that Saturday night when the Warriors came to San Antonio, and there was a lot of commotion with the NBA and their fans saying, "Oh, this is going to be the game of the year. It's the 1 seed versus the 2 seed. The Warriors, the defending champions. Against the dynasty, the current dynasty of the NBA, I'd say, in the San Antonio Spurs." And we saw what the Spurs did to Stephen Curry. They made him feel uncomfortable. And we've seen Steph throughout this year, and even in years past, where he's so dominant, shooting off the dribble, shooting in transition. We've seen it. But, if you saw that game back in March, San Antonio, they defended the three-point line perfectly, and they just got up in Stephen Curry's zone and just made him feel uncomfortable, and they contested every single shot that he took. And the thing is, he couldn't get a rhythm in that game. He couldn't get a rhythm. And you look historically, during the Popovich Big Three era of the Spurs, there's some times that they've beaten teams that were better than them. You can look at the Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire Phoenix Suns when they had the fast break offense led by head coach Mike D'Antoni at the time. Or you could say even the 2014 NBA Finals when the Heat were trying to get the three-peat, and they were led by LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, and their big three was still in their prime. But you know what? You can't doubt the Spurs, because they have that championship mentality and that bulldog mentality of, hey, we've been through this before. Everybody's praising the other team, the better team, quote unquote. We'll just stay low, be under the radar, and play our game and hope for the best. And you got to respect the Spurs for that, because they're not flashy, they're not cocky, they're not arrogant. They just get guys to do their job and play. And you gotta give Greg Popovich tremendous credit for that. And plus, I think they're a good defensive team, because Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, those guys, maybe when they were younger, the Spurs were more of an offensive team, but now they're more of a defensive team. And like I said, you saw what they did to Stephen Curry, because he couldn't get a rhythm, his shots weren't going, and he was frustrated. So you gotta like the Spurs in that chant against the Warriors, and we'll move on to the Thunder. And I think with the Thunder, they're not more known for their defense, but they're kind of like that Phoenix Suns team with when they were led by Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. They'll score 100+ points a game. They have a dominant point guard. As good as Steve Nash was, Russell Westbrook is 10 times, maybe even 100 times better than Steve Nash in his prime, bar none. Because you saw this season, he was putting up astronomical and gaudy numbers. And and it seemed like every game he was getting a triple-double. There was a stat saying, I think it was in the regular season, it was one game where it was like the first 11, 12, 13 minutes of the game, and he already had a triple-double. You believe that? It's crazy. But you know what? With the Thunder, you got to like their chances, because you know what? I think if they can play to their game, if they can bring their A game in a 7-game series with the Thunder, they could have a chance, because you know what? They have a dynamic duo in the NBA with Russell Westbrook, with Kevin Durant. They can make shots. They can hit the 3-ball, just like Golden State. It's all a matter is two things, actually. Can they outscore them? And can they contain them? It's like saying, if OKC makes a shot, can they stop Golden State, or can they prevent Golden State from making another shot? Or is it just going to be a seesaw battle and whoever makes the most shots wins? Because, each team, they have a strategy. It's whether play defense and then score, or score and just hope, and, play very little defense and then hope you outscore the opposition when all is said and done. Because I think, other than the Warriors, I think OKC is one of those teams, that could has a phenomenal fast break offense and can compete with them, and can compete with their high style of offense. It's just the problem is when you play a fast break offense, or when you're a fast break offensive team, you're not a very good defensive team, because granted you may score over 110 points a game, but you're also giving up nearly or a little over 110 points a game, because you're so tired of running up and down the court, you have no energy to play defense. And I guess that was a flaw with those Suns teams back in the day. But yeah, you can't doubt the Thunder either. Now, I know KD and Russell Westbrook, they underachieve, but I think there's something about, but when I watch this Thunder team play throughout the whole season, there's something about this team that made me realize, that made me think, you know what? There's something different. And I don't, for some strange reason, I don't know what it is. I just, watching them, they just seem more confident, more explosive, more elusive when running the fast break offense. And they have a chance. Plus, you hear the murmurs and the rumors, is KD going to stay with the Thunder? Is he going to go back? Is he going to leave them and go to Washington, D.C. and play for the Wizards? Is he going to reunite with James Harden and the Houston Rockets? Is he going to go to the Houston Rockets and reunite with James Harden? There's a lot of rumors going on about that situation. Along with Russell Westbrook, is he going to stay? Is he going to go to the Lakers? But Warriors, the Thunder though, they have that potential this year. And if everything falls into play for them and they win the title, then you know what? Maybe that changes KD's perception and his mindset, saying, you know what? I'm going to stay here. I won a championship with this team, and we're going to move on and hopefully win more. And you know what? And I always want to say this OKC Thunder team kind of reminds me of the 2011 Dallas Maverick team. They were a third seed. Dirk had a lot of criticism going on. He had to deal with a lot of critics. He couldn't win a championship. He rarely gets past the first round. People were still knocking him that because he didn't win the 2006 NBA Finals, and he had a 2-0 series lead, and he lost the last 4. Because Dirk was the leader of that team, kind of reminiscent to KD. And if you think about it, both players are kind of similar. They're both power forwards. Both have a sweet stroke. Both have a great shooting motion and can hit the 3. But you know what? We'll see what happens with OKC, and we'll see what happens with the Thunder, because they play the Mavericks, which I think they're going to win, and then they would have to play. That's the 3-6. They would have to play the winner of the Spurs and Grizzlies series, which is probably going to be the Spurs. So you know what? Either way, Golden State's either going to have to play San Antonio or OKC if they get past the Rockets and the winner of the Clippers and Trailblazers series. And that concludes our second segment of The Rock is On.